All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Symphogear, Season 3, Episode 3. A weapon to surpass even Symphogear.
Oh, indeed.
Yes.
Indeed, yes.
How will they beat this? Probably with some hand-holding, I'm guessing, you know? But that may take some time because...
That's what you do when your weapons fail you.
That's right. That or call in Genjiro, but apparently the bridge would just fall apart without him.
But they can't because they summoned things that aren't noise but kind of are noise but aren't, so...
Right. And then the question is wait, where did those come from? Because what about the whole thing we did at the end of season 2? How does this all work? Yeah.
We've got ourselves some cyborgs, if you will, to
That's true.
To bring down our overpowered protagonists a bit.
That's right.
Yes.
Because when all else fails, take away the protagonist's powers. That's
indeed.
If they're too powerful, well, you can always try that. Unless they don't use their powers because they just want to be friends.
Yep, exactly. Can't stop that, can you?
Yep.
No, not your cheesy, you know, I can absorb power.
Right. I will break miracles or whatever. It's like, well, what about the miracle of friendship?
And love.
Hand-holding.
Damn it.
And face-tanking all your attacks without any powers.
Yeah.
Indeed, that is the kind of person he is. But then there's also this girl that needs to be saved that looks very similar to the leader.
So let's figure out what that's all about.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. This episode, y'all.
Oh my god.
This was actually a really interesting episode because first off, we confirmed most of the things that we were suspecting here.
Yep.
We have ourselves an assembly of homunculi.
Awesome.
That Carol Malus Dienheim created.
Yep.
It is not 100% confirmed that she was the one that created them.
Or necessarily that the rest of them are homunculus, because they could still potentially be something different from the copy of her.
Yes.
But it seems to be the case.
Yeah, the difference being primarily that they are called auto-scorers.
Right.
And still, they do have personality. So I'm going to call them homunculi of a probable lesser version than what the young girl was, that very much seems to be like a simulacrum, like kind of a magical copy of Carol.
Yep.
So,
cool.
Okay.
But
All
also
right.
just
Wonderful.
auto-scorers, that's a very particular name, because auto, you know, again, automaton makes sense, right? Scorers, what is the thing that's being scored here? Like,
sometimes I feel like at times there's a bit of a Japanese translation issue with these kinds of things, where scorer is not necessarily the correct translation. It's just the best thing that there is, because
there's no true
translation.
equivalent.
So we'll wait and see, like, maybe for something that could come up with that, because I don't have any clue how score.
It's a bit out there, so
it's also like one of those words that might literally just mean in context something completely different, where it's like, for us, we think points, score, points,
right?
But score also can mean like burning. You know,
marking something.
Marking,
Right.
So who's to say?
Totally.
So, okay, the legacy of the Vergdayen is a relic that is capable of stopping them.
Cool. So they've got the MacGuffin and the Nega
That's exactly
MacGuffin.
what we thought it was going to be. We now have basically all the pieces for a very simple plot
and
set up here. But if we know anything about Symphogear,
it's
never going to be that simple.
And even if the mechanics might be simple, right, the journey to the end is going to be all kinds of crazy, with all sorts of stuff happening that you might not expect. Like, for instance...
What happened in Season 2, really?
Well, yes, that too. I mean... But also the random detour to school for home ec classes and learning how to make...
SUTUROGANOFU.
BEEFU. Oh my god. I feel like that is just one of the many examples of why I love this show. Because you have no idea. You have really just no idea what is going to happen moment to moment. We are having this thing where it's like, real talk. Ame no Habakiri and Ichival they are both,
Disassembled.
disassembled. You can't use your
Broken
Symphogear. Hibiki, you are our last hope. And if Kirika and Shirabe try and help you, they could die because we don't have Linker.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And Hibiki, you're wanting to just not fight, but you might have to. BEEFU Stroganofu! Out there prediction.
Yes.
But I'm predicting. And I think we've talked about this since like earlier on.
Okay.
But those 3 school friends, it is only a matter of time before they get Symphogear. In a similar way, even if it's not like forever, right? But in a similar way that we got Miku using Symphogear in season 2, right? I feel like this was Symphogear kind of foreshadowing of like they do still go to the musical school, so they are very good at singing, and like
That is true.
I'm just saying. Yeah. Also,
that's a good point. But yeah, I kind of want to bring up the idea. I mean, this episode was hilarious in the jarring a shift back to school, like that. At this point, I'm not surprised.
And then jumping from that back into they're trying to disassemble the world, and and like, okay.
Yeah, and then irrational numbers being used.
Oh my
to
god.
Talk about whether or not.
Oh my god. Something's down there.
Yeah. That sent me.
Holy shit.
But the idea that we're confirming now that the alchemical powers of Carol, which she probably got by being in a long line of alchemists, could theoretically trace all the way back to the things that have been set up within this world with regards to beings that want to ascend, to find God. On some level, this makes sense on the level of the types of powers that alchemists have had throughout history in their, not really history, but like myth,
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea of, transmutation, okay, yeah, for sure. Oh, disassembling things down to their base components or what have you.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Making life.
Yeah, that's the more ridiculous one, but it's also the path that in fiction most alchemists end up going towards. So cool, we have automatons with probable souls put inside them or what have you.
Oh, you know that by the time they're Nakama, that question is going to come up.
Oh, yeah.
And Hibiki's going to be like, yes, you absolutely do have a soul. I can hold these hands.
To be fair, though, that's probably where things are going to get dark. And it's the idea that, but they're also automatons, and we can't override that. So we need to set their souls free and put them into non-automaton bodies. So I'm going out there on a limb right now, and I'm going to say that this alchemist kind of shit is all foreshadowing for eventually slaying or defeating or fighting God, because
God was set up in season 1.
God was set up in season 1, and the idea that in this world, the idea of creating people has now been brought up that humans could do. So therefore, we now have our power escalation tier set up, progression.
Yep.
All right, cool. I'm ready for that. That's wonderful. If you're gonna set it up with alchemists, which are kind of like they're kind of like vampires to the fantasy power systems, where like everyone kind of knows what vampires can do. Alchemists show up and people are like, oh yeah, there's alchemical symbols in their spellcraft, and they can transmute things, and
they're
create
powerful
homunculi.
nerds. Yeah,
super powerful nerds that were not understood throughout history.
That's right.
Yeah, it's in some ways like a very nice through line to the kind of the witches situation throughout history, where it's Carol's father seems to have been burned at the stake, probably. Yeah. So there's a nice through line to that whole situation as well. And given that this show focuses primarily on female characters in general, we can get a nice little exploration of the idea of the world being scared of things that it doesn't quite understand, and how Hibiki is the one that can truly understand the heart of the situation here. But of course, she has to understand her place in this world, which means sometimes she has to give up the thing she wants the most if she wants to protect.
Right, like beef stroganoff. Yeah, sometimes she has to give that up. But the thing you mentioned of like you could see this taking a darker turn. Yeah. That sort of like cycled around up here, and now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, 5 antagonists. Can all of them be Nakama'd? And they're already potentially Nakamaing the one homunculi.
That's what I think it's going to be. It's going to be Carol and the
homunculus.
Mostly entirely confirmed homunculi, whereas the other ones are more automatons.
The auto score people.
Yeah,
I could
where the
totally
souls might be more created.
Now I'm picturing some kind of like Madoka Magica montage of just like Hibiki is like trying to reach them or whatever, and maybe it's working.
Horrific
right?
death.
And they're starting to be friends, but then all of a sudden they just get destroyed one after the other. You know,
maybe once they start to have any doubts or what have you, something within their soul
a self-destruct switch or whatever. And it's just the eyes go dead, and parts start flying out of their bodies or whatever.
Or at the very least, the soul is recalled, and it's this horrific, like painful, like
oh sure,
and then it gets sent back to their like deposit point here, where we can see them like mounted up in a very creepy way. I'm just gonna say, very much selling the whole "their dolls" kind of thing.
Right.
But I have to say, this puts a little bit of a potential light on Carol as a person, in that she has these people. I'm gonna call them people. I'm not gonna try and make the point to that. They're automatons, so therefore they're not actual real people.
Yeah,
they
can speak and emote
works.
and think and all of that stuff.
And they have pretty unique personalities.
Yep.
They don't seem to be fragmented reflections of an aspect of Carol.
Right. It doesn't even though they did seem to be fueled by the memories drained from the people that Gary would do the suck to.
Yes.
That didn't seem to affect their personality necessarily. That just more seemed to be like their gasoline that they needed to have, filled in the tank,
Right. And while they might end up doing something where it's based on kind of their names, maybe there's some aspect of them being reincarnations of people from the past or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Carol's playing with her. Like it feels kind of like a Medusa in some cases of like I have my statues,
my toys
that keep me company, basically.
Yeah. And they serve me and my interests, and all I am is important. They are tools. They are a means to an end.
Right.
Therefore, all that they are doesn't really matter.
And that's one of the things that I'm.
Yeah, that kind of sets her up against Hibiki, really.
And we got that setup of Carol against Hibiki in the previous episode, and it went wonderfully. And yet, she did seem to be perturbed by Hibiki's steadfast, refusal to fight, right? And that could just be because it was no, come on, we need to get your Symphogear.
Yeah.
This plan was perfect. Why aren't you just doing the logical thing, right? Right? Because then the battle would be over, right? And then there'd be no Symphogears to stop them, and it'd be simple.
Yeah.
Whether it's that or it's your words are emotionally affecting me.
I think it's
who's
both.
To say?
I think it's both.
I think both makes the most sense.
It's just the percentage of which is which. Yeah.
And we'll have to find that out.
Yeah.
But if it ends up being something where, say, Hibiki can't actually Nakama somebody, that would be really interesting, because in season 2, we had Ver, who was not Nakama-able, right? And that was very clear and apparent,
he
right?
was a boy, after all.
You can't have any of these cute anime girls try and hold hands with a boy.
No.
God, the fans would lose their minds.
That's het shit. We don't do that here.
But
he's also too old. He's practically like 21.
Yeah, exactly. So. Practically 21 with his gray hair.
Yeah.
This is anime after all. Even Genjiro is like 32?
Genjiro's 29.
but I would love to see something where we take that darker turn, whether it's with the auto scores or with Carol or whoever, where Hibiki isn't necessarily able to save everybody because maybe they just don't want to be saved or whatever, right? They've made their decision, they're sticking to their guns, no amount of hand-holding will work here. And then how Hibiki then has to deal with that, because so far, she's had a pretty good streak, a pretty good winning streak. There's been some complications. That bit with Miku was hard, and when she couldn't use her Symphogear because she would, die and all of that stuff. But
losing her arm,
losing her arm. But those usually resolve themselves pretty quickly, and the hand-holding thing was like an absolute power. As soon as those fingers interlocked in that lewd way that almost needed to be censored, it was over.
But what might be happening right now is that we might be having the story be looked at with a critical eye from the creators, where they're looking at the buildup of their protagonist and realizing that the next direction for them to do is to disassemble her, to break her down to her base components, and figure out who is Hibiki, really?
Mind break the sweet cinnamon roll.
Right, so right now we start with, like you were saying, the classic thing of the hero can't summon their power. And it has nothing to do with the actual mechanics of the power. It's about matters of the heart. And the idea is that you don't really know your place here.
Right, you don't want to fight, even though you're good at it.
We had, in parallel with that, Kirika and Shirabe. Yeah, we had them discussing their place in this world as well.
Yeah.
Do they fit in here if they can't actually use their Symphogear? Because while they can use it, it's just not as effective when you compare them to someone like Hibiki.
Right, and it's at immense risk to themselves, and they witnessed firsthand how things can go off the rails when you think that the only way to solve your problems is by fighting.
Yep.
Right?
Especially when it's just whatever's in front of you.
Exactly, right. And so of course that was at its worst when they were fighting against each other. But theoretically they could still end up going down that rabbit hole with other people, right?
True.
Especially now that they've been befriended by Hibiki.
Yes.
They know that, hey, just because you're an enemy with somebody doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. Theoretically, they could be a friend that you just haven't held hands with yet, you know?
True.
But,
we'll see.
We will.
Yeah, but, okay.
BEEFU stroganoff.
yeah. Beef stroganoff, and what is your play here now that your friends are in danger?
Right.
There's Alka noise, which is still kind of noise, so you can't just send Genjiro into this.
I love the way this show just constantly is like, okay, we need to have some kind of like plot thing or whatever to make sure that Genjiro can never actually go into the fighting, because then that would just damage his rule of cool. The whole story would be resolved too quickly, right?
Right.
You know, so yeah.
It's the whole book of Symphogear is this big. Symphogear if Genjiro could be involved in the fighting. And it's just like this tiny little 12-page document, you know.
Yeah. Even if Hibiki lost her powers or something, what you would do is just put her on Genjiro's shoulders. Genjiro would still be fast enough to avoid the Alka noise, and then he would just transport her to the locations of the antagonists so that Hibiki could then hold their hands, right? And then you just do that.
So she has hand-holding strafe tactics. So it's
exactly.
like Elden Ring. She kind of holds a heavy hand-holding attack, just like.
You know that Hibiki's hand scales S with strength and faith. Let's be real.
Yeah. The problem is it has a negative scaling with intelligence. So
or it has yes, it does.
Yeah.
The lower your intelligence is,
right.
the more damage it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, yeah.
And that makes sense because she rolled hero, that's for sure.
Absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if anything that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.